So, all right. So today's session is going to be all about HDR. I am Jay Patel, and just to give you a little bit of introduction about who I am and what I do a lot of landscape photography, and as you know, that when shooting with wide-angle lenses, HDR is absolutely essential to control the dynamic range, and that is what I use HDR for. And we're coming here live from Alex's studio.
Yeah,
Alex.
I'm so glad to have such a guest in our studio here in Atlanta. It was a big surprise when Jay said, "Oh, we're coming to Atlanta, so let's meet." I'm excited, really. So, yeah, we're gonna talk about HDR. We have some interesting questions and about techniques and how we do, because I'm sure we do it differently. And yeah.
All right, so I think what we have done is we have prepared a bunch of questions to get the information out to everybody who's either listening to this broadcast or is interested in joining us. So let's start with HDR workflow. So Alex, I'll go through these questions, and for each question, perhaps you and I can go ahead and answer as to what our techniques are, and then we can go. So the first question is about HDR workflow. So when we shoot HDR, do you guys, Alex, do handheld, or do you do tripod only HDRs?
Well, for me, it's both. It's all based on the situation. If I have time, if I have tripod with me, I obviously try to shoot with tripod because it in general produces much better results at the end. But in many situations, I have only camera and I have just like a minute or so just to snap some interesting scenic view. So I shoot from handheld. And also I found that it's much easier when I walk the streets of Atlanta. It's much easier to shoot from hands because people may not like tripod, near bank, office. Guards start coming saying, "What are you doing here? What are you shooting?" And if I from hands, it's like I need 10 seconds to snap a shot, to snap that sequence.
Say for us as landscape photographers, we almost always use tripod for a couple of reasons, because a lot of our images get blown up really large and you want that alignment to be exact. And in case of landscape photography, the other thing that happens is a depth of field. You also need a very, very large depth of field. So we oftentimes use very small aperture f/16s, f/14s is not uncommon. And when you're shooting past golden hours, it is almost always the case that all our exposures will be very long exposures. So shooting by handheld is mostly not an option for us. Even if you're in a canyon, a slot canyon of some sort and shooting, we almost always need tripod. You cannot pull off a handheld shot with 3-second shutter speed, or even 0.6 or 0.7 second shutter speed. The blur will be just too much.
Yeah. So do you ever shoot with hands or never?
I do if I'm shooting my kid's photograph, but
no, HDR. Let's talk about HDR. You never try to shoot
handheld HDR? Yeah, I do when I'm taking my kid's photograph.
Okay, so we do HDR for kids.
Every once in a while. I mean, that would be like 2 shots a year. That will be handheld, but they'll never make it on G Plus or any other places. So, all right. So the next question is about the auto bracketing. Do you auto bracket? And if not, why not? What's your EV stops, and how many exposures you manually have for your HDR?
Auto bracketing, yeah. For handheld, it's obviously, well, not obviously, but it's always auto bracketing. I put camera in continuous shooting mode. I set auto bracketing, and well, it's good when camera can do whole sequence, the whole range in that sequence of shots. But like we discussed with you earlier, with 5D, Canon 5D, it can do only 3 shots with maximum 2 have stop in between. In most cases, it's enough. But in some cases, when I shoot against sun and it's really, really bright sky and some dark areas, some shadows, it's not enough. So it's really pain in one place to shoot handheld with auto bracketing, but what I do 2 shots, basically 2 sequences. I start from -2 exposure compensation, do a quick burst of 3 shots, which will be -4, -2, and 0. And then I put +2, try not to move, and shoot 3 more from 0, +2, and +4. But when I work with tripod, and like I said, I like it's much more than handheld. In many cases, I shoot in manual mode, not auto bracketing. I shoot in manual mode because there is no boundaries for me. I can do as many shots I want, and it's like I'm not relying on how many camera can make for me. I have time usually with tripod. It's not like I'm in a hurry, right? I shoot with remote shutter, so everything is steady, and I can check histogram for each shot to decide, do I need to do one more, or I can stop right here. So manual is full control, but it's slow. Auto bracketing, it's fine, but it's always like, what do you need more, speed or quality?
So when you're determining how many shots you need, you actually don't know ahead of time. You actually use manual histograms to determine.
Well, yeah. Usually, if it's new thing, I may guess, but first shot usually will show me how much real I need, and then I know it. After first shot, I can change the angle. Usually, I do several different angles, several from the same spot. So the rest I know. And even shooting manual, I don't think after I check first shot. I just know how many I need and which range between exposures I need to make.
So we always use auto bracketing, and we do a lot of manual blending. We usually don't use photomatics programs, so our EV stops between exposure will probably not exceed 2 stops. We will try to remain 1 stop, or between 1 and 2 stop is pretty normal for us. We will not try to exceed 2 stops, because when you try to exceed 2 stops, what happens is sometimes you end up losing details in the images that in the areas where there isn't enough detail on either of the shots, the +2 or -2. Right. And that is not really good for blending purposes. You get kind of dull blended images. So we'll always stay under 2 shots. Ideally, I would like to stay around one stop between bracketed images if I can. And I can take as many bracketed images as I want. And if the terrain allows, what we will do is we'll actually put a filter and then do bracketing. So we will use a GND filter and do bracketing. So we will extend the dynamic range using both GND filter and bracketed shots to make the scene look as real as possible.
So what average, how many exposures on the average shot?
On an average shot, I will 90% of my shots, or even 95% of my shots will be 3 shot.
3, right.
And very rarely will I take 4th and 5th shot if I need to. But I will a lot of times put filters. About 20% of my shots will have bracketed plus filters. Right. And then other times the filters just don't fit very well in the range. And then we can go from there. But one of the things we do use quite a bit is that we have in 5D Mark II capabilities of determining what is the dynamic range of the image in LiveView. So we will use LiveView and we will figure out the dynamic range of the image ahead of time, and then we will know whether I need to bracket 3 shots with 1 stop difference or 3 stops with more than 1 stop difference.
How did it, what, because I never use LiveView to determine it.
Well, it's a workflow.
Did it show you highlights?
It will show you highlights, it will show you shadows,
right.
And then you can actually determine what the difference between the f-stop is between the highlights and the shadows, and then you can figure out exactly what it needs. So we'll have to then determine what we can do to get that running. So that's how we ended up doing LiveView. So the other question for us is pretty simple. Is it always RAW you shoot or JPEG as well? We always shoot RAW. My camera never comes off RAW mode at all, ever.
Same here. Same here.
So we always end up shooting RAW, and and that was an easy question for us. All right, so we're going to go to the next page, and Alex, your computer is okay?
Yeah, what I did, I adjusted my sound because we got some feedback that I'm too loud.
Okay.
So hopefully I'm not too loud anymore.
All right. Let's see if we can talk about the gear. Favorite lens and tripod. I see a lot of fisheye from you.
Yes. I bought fisheye several weeks ago. Well, not several months ago, and I just fell in love with this lens. It's special lens. I probably just because I never had fisheye before, I kind of get so excited using it. And it's a really funny lens in terms of if you see, I live in Georgia, beautiful state, and but to get to some nice scenic view, I need to drive a lot, and it's not always I have time. So I've been ended up shooting simple views, but with wide angle with fisheye. It looks very unusual, and that's why I use it a lot. Can I say that it's my favorite? Well, it's my favorite for the last 3 months. But before that, I was using, well, I have 4mm Canon f2.8 L lens. It's a great lens. I was using it before for architectural stuff, for interior and exterior. It's 14mm. It's very wide, but it's very corrected, and it's amazing lens. Well, by quality, it beats that fisheye many times. So it's probably my favorite for landscape. Still wide lens. And tripod, well, I have it's Manfrotto. Forgot not this one. XB 550 or something like that. I forgot. It's ball head.
I see.
Well, I have studio stand which I like.
See,
so, what about you?
My favorite lens is 16-35 or 70-40 on a full frame camera, and if I'm shooting a crop, it'll be 10-22 Canon. And if you go wider than 16mm on a full frame, we'll just keep the discussion to full frame. You get too much distortion. So I usually don't like doing that on a wide-angle lenses because most of our prints hang up in galleries, and if the distortion is too much, it doesn't really make for a good landscape photograph. So we try to limit the distortion, but one of my favorite lenses to shoot with is 24mm tilt shift. 22mm tilt shift is a excellent lens as opposed to 17mm tilt shift, because with tilt shift you can do a bracketed shot. You can then shift your lens and do a series of bracketed shot again, and then you can actually get a panorama tripod, panorama HDR.
I see. Wow, that's good.
And it is an expensive lens, and it also has front thread, so you can actually mount filters on it when you need to. So I really like shooting with that. Plus, with tilt shift, you can do some creative stuff that you cannot do with a normal lens. The downside of tilt shift is it's a lens which has it's a prime lens, so you can't really always zoom in. So you have to make a choice whether zooming is more important than tilt shift lens or not. But the quality of the lens is just fantastic, and it takes 82mm filter rate, and I love it. For us, tripods are particularly important. We actually have an ebook on how to choose a tripod, and one of the most interesting characteristics of the tripod we look for is lightweight.
Oh, yeah.
So we use a carbon fiber, a Gitso carbon fiber tripod to shoot pretty much all our landscape work. It's a Mountaineering Series 0 tripod. So that is something that is incredibly important for us. And for HDRs, oftentimes that is a really light tripod. So if it is a windy condition, what we will do is there's a hook under the tripod, and we will actually hang some weight or a camera bag to stabilize the tripod that way. So the HDR frames, when they go in, they are actually stable.
Right, and it's not too windy. What kind of head do you use?
Oh, we have a ultimate ball head. Both Varina and I both use ultimate ball head for our heads because it allows us to quickly change camera positions without having to fool around too much.
Right.
And plus, it's good for long, heavy lenses, which sometimes it can get. So, all right. What about any special gears? Remote release. Anything else you guys use for HDRs?
Well, just remote release, remote shutter, and that's it. I was thinking to get that. Well, unfortunately, I forgot. It's basically a microcomputer which you connect through USB, and it can do sequence of shot for you. You can program it to. Well, I forgot. I don't have this device, so I forgot its name. It cost around $300, which is pretty cool. You can override most of the settings of the camera and shoot with it, so you can have like 10 sequence of 10 shots with almost any step in between.
And you can change the shutter speed. And,
shutter, yeah, full control of the camera. Basically, like you can do from computer, right, from the Canon software. But that little device, well, I need to try it. I can't talk much about it because I never had it, but just had a discussion on G+ and people using it with great success.
Yeah, one of the things I want to see is Canon build capabilities. They have a great remote shutter release, which does lots of shots and timing between the shots, but I want them to be able to build in exposure advancing capabilities in that, where you can say, okay, go from 0 to X number of shots in that. And we do use remote shutter release all the time. Oftentimes, we will actually use LiveView to do bracketing. And the way we will use LiveView is in the newer Canon models. What happens with LiveView is that you have your 2-second timer delay, and then you have first shot, and then there's no delay, and the mirror stays up. So your 2-second timer, so your mirror goes up, then there's a 2-second timer delay, then there's first shot, second shot, third shot, without mirror actually going down. So from a high-speed bracketing perspective, when you do a live view bracketed shots, it gives you incredible amount of control over how fast between the shots. Now, if you use 2-second timer delay and not use live view, then what happens is you have 2-second timer delay, you take one shot, and then another 2-second timer delay, another shot, 2-second timer delay. And if you have really windy conditions and the clouds are moving, you get exposure which is kind of spread out, and then blending becomes really difficult in Photoshop with artifacts and ghosting effects coming in. So one of the special things we do use with our HDR is live view to increase the speed of the shots. You can, if you're remote shutter release, you don't need live view. You can actually just fire off the remote shutter release and not worry too much about the camera shake, and that works as well. The other special thing we use for HDR is we do use GND filters to tame the dynamic range when necessary. Our philosophy is that, hey, if you can get it right in the camera, it is much better than getting it spending hours in post-processing. Oh, yeah. So when we use GND filters, it isn't quite as bad as the blending isn't quite as bad as without GND filters. But those opportunities are limited. You can't always use GND filters. Terrain dictates it.
I see you did mention that use ultraviolet filter, the glass. You don't use it, right? UV filter. For what about protection? Let's talk. I had this topic recently on G+. I posted like how many people use always use UV filter, and it looks like I would say about 70% use it for protection. Do you protect your lens?
I do have a UV filter that I protect my lens with. The reason being, when we are out in the field, for example, Iceland, we were out by the shore, and there's so much spray that is coming off that it's almost impossible for you to exploit your lens and expect your lens to remain. And then one of the places, other reason for using UV filter is if you go to places with glacial lakes, like for example Havasu Falls. It is not a glacial lake, but the places like Havasu Falls and glacial lakes that have sediments in the water. And if you go near a waterfall, then there is a mist blowing, right? Not only will the mist coat your lens, which is not bad in itself, but when the mist evaporates, you end up getting this really fine coating on your lens of glacial silt. And what we found out in places like Havasu Falls, that coating occurs very quickly because the falls have such big mist in there. And that coating it just kills your lens in a few minutes, and then to get it off, you have to really scrape it very hard. And we don't really like to do that to our lenses. So we usually like to put a UV filter so that none of those elements get on the front.
Right, but that's when some hazards present. What about just sunny day?
I mean, you can take it off, but I'm too lazy.
So you don't think that it may add some glare or some kind of thing?
It does. If you're shooting into the sun, one of the most important thing for us is to be able to not have dust particles, because as soon as you have dust particles, you get specular highlight. So what we do carry in the field is we do carry a visible dust sensor. A visible dust will actually go ahead and remove everything that is there. So that was something that we actually do quite a bit about that, and then go from there. All right, let's go to the next page. Post-production. This is a pretty interesting and controversial topic. So I'll let you go first. How much time do you spend on HDR, and what are your favorite programs?
Well, I wish I can have Zhenya with me, because Zhenya Larionova, she's my wife and she's my Photoshop guru. She's doing all post-production for me. I know what she's using, how much time she's spending, but especially I can't talk much about all the techniques, but I can tell you what I know. So how much time on good shots, when I did a good job of selecting correct step for my exposures, and usually if it's not handheld but a tripod shot, it's not that much time. I would say, well, maybe she's coming. Maybe like half an hour, maybe 10 minutes for good shot. But sometimes, like I said, when it's something fast moving, starting from people, or maybe even worse, like the clouds, it may take time to clean them. Plus, there is tricky shots when sun is in front of you and you see it through the lens, and it's not like just empty sky, but it's clouds, sun, and clouds get really overexposed if it's near the sun or just a little bit covered in sun. And to get that correct gradient from that overexposed area to normal area in post-production, it's a tricky. I know it's tricky because it's kind of, it doesn't look right. So in these cases, maybe hour or more, maybe like a few hours of post-production of such shots. Are you talking about software? Or
yeah, software. Go ahead.
Yeah, and well, software use Photomatix, Photomatix Pro, the latest one for to combine shots together to remove hosting, and the rest is done in Photoshop. Basically, Jenny always produce very low saturation image, TIFF 16-bit TIFF from Photomatix, and then she boosts all the details. Well, she's trying to preserve all the details in Photomatix. That's why it's low saturation, low contrast image. Then in Photoshop, what she's doing, she's tuning it to look vivid or whatever she wants. But so Photoshop plus Photomatix. Photomatix is for assembling, Photoshop for final adjustments.
See, I spend anywhere between 10 to 20 minutes on a shot, sometimes even less. If the shot is fairly simple and the horizon line isn't quite difficult. We also do a lot of all our production work is done in Photoshop. We don't use any programs. We have our own technique called HDR, which I stands for Intelligent HDR. And what it allows us to do is it allows us to blend images only in the areas that we see necessary.
Also use a mask in it.
We use mask and layers completely to control our blending. And it allows our images also to look very natural. That means that the local shadows are preserved, local highlights are preserved, and the gradient of the sun is not an issue for us. The flare and everything seems to work out very nicely for us. The blending itself is a workflow, and you really have to know your masks very well in order for you to be able to successfully do that.
Well, I know we use mask, but you said it 10 minutes or less. That's amazing, man. Because usually masking takes much more time to, it's manual job to do all the composition through the mask.
Yeah.
That's great.
So we have a video actually on our blog for HDR that shows how the mask is. I can't demonstrate over here because I don't have my stylus and things. But it is difficult but we know, Varina and I know Photoshop and masks like back of our hands. So when we sit down with 3 images, for us to blend 3 images is incredibly easy. And that's how we do it. So we go ahead and do that and then go from there. But it has its limitations. If there are too many shots, the blending can get complicated. Sometimes we spend more time on one image than others.
Right.
I have spent time as much as half an hour or 45 minutes on an image, but usually that is not the case. We don't usually have that much time that we spend because we're actually very good at masks and layers.
And the hosting you do through mask, right?
Yeah, we do everything through masks. We have 3 simple steps in our workflow to the mask. You create a luminosity mask, you refine the luminosity mask, and then bring out the details, and that's it. That is the entire workflow.
That's great.
So as long as you know mask, it'll just go very smoothly.
Well, I wish I can have Jenny here.
Oh, that's okay. We will.
But anyway, we have the HDR, realistic HDR book, so she's explaining the process of all this. Yeah.
All right, so I think that we're at the end of our broadcast. What I want to do is I want to actually close it out at this point so we can then live broadcast the recording and then we can go